I think we're live. I think we've been given that signal to say that we are live. And welcome again, ladies and gentlemen, for another fabulous show of Let's Talk About It, where we're going to be talking about the trauma and the people and kind of how we heal. But before we get started, we did have a scheduled guest. Unfortunately, she has had to cancel. She had yet another tragic family incident that has occurred within her family. Back in 2019, her son was shot back then, and she has been having some challenging times, still kind of coping and dealing with that there. And here recently, she had put together some healing circles for impacted families. And she called it Public Interest Inc. and Innovative Solutions. And she said that her first session was extremely well. She had a really nice turnout. She said that she was a little taken back because there was a lot more men in the house than there was females. And so we're going to be talking about that, a little bit, along with some of the things that has been kind of occurring over the last couple of days here, within the city of Minneapolis. Unfortunately, tragedy has struck her family again. And I believe it was her cousin, or I would just say a family member, that was shot and killed in downtown Minneapolis last night.
Oh, the Ava Hennepin incident.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I do want to send, my condolences to Brandy Israel and her family. We love you. We support you. We will still be here, when you are ready to come on. These type of things, again, we continue to say, not one more, why this and why that. And I believe that as we move forward with the election, if you will, for Joseph Banks for sheriff, we have some pretty, innovative ideas and some plans on how we really kind of want to take a bite out of crime, if you will. But it all starts with the community, and we have to be able to buy in to what's going on, think outside the box, and really kind of roll up our sleeves and get things done. We have seen time and time again that we're spending way too much money, and we're getting way too many hands in the pot, but yet we're still seeing these same tragedies, these same occurrences again and again and again. Joe, before we really kind of get off up into this, I've noticed, can't help but to notice, that you have seemed to bring this big old stuffed Pittsburgh bear, a dog, or I don't know what this darn thing is, and this cup, and then this hat you got on. I mean, what's going on today, brother?
Well, the bear represents the fact that a lot of teams just can't bear us, man. We're just doing our thing out there. Looking forward to kicking this season off. This is that week, man. This is that week when we show up and show out and let people know, man, we're here, man. We're ready for this year. It's a fresh shot at getting that championship ring, and we're ready to do it.
Okay.
For those of you who know, yes, we already have, enough rings, but we're looking to try and get one more.
Okay.
And so we've put together a nice shop. We got Hines Ward that's helping us out on the offensive coordination thing. We got Troy Polamalu that's coming back to help us out a little bit with the defense and everything. We got Bill Cower in the office as general manager helping us out make some championship decisions.
All right.
And so then we got Mike Tomlin on the field calling the ball. So I think that we have a legitimate shot to really make some things happen. Now, we're excited about the fact that we have, picked up the gentleman from the Jets. I can't even say it with a straight face. But Aaron Rodgers, we're looking forward to see exactly what Aaron is going to do this season at the kickoff. But we have some bag up behind him just in case things don't work out. But we really believe that Aaron has had a come to Jesus talk with himself, and he's surrounded by guys who are championship players, and it forces him to elevate himself to a different level. So you got guys like Metcalf and that out there from the throw the ball to. We got some nice guys in the backfield and some great linemen. So we just need him to go out there and do what he do and make a few miracles happen on 31st Street, baby. We gonna get this here win.
Well, all right. Well, as you can see, he didn't tell me that this was NFL Sports Week, so I didn't bring any of my Vikings attire, but it's okay. It's all right. It all matters about those W's and those L's as we get into the season here. And I think that we meet each other at least once, don't we, this year?
We do. Game 4 of the season, we'll be meeting in Ireland.
Okay. All right. Well,
Yes.
I will be at your house, eating some food and because it's costs too much to go down the island. So I'll just come on over to your house.
Yes, come on over and check out that championship team. Get a chance to see what them boys looking like.
Yes, indeedy. Well, man, why don't you go ahead and hit them with that famous backpack, man, those groundkeeping rules, man. It's a beautiful day outside, but we got so much, that we want to talk about, need to talk about, that I want to just kind of get right on into it.
Sure. We want to thank everybody for joining us. We just ask that you respect everyone's comments. Remember, there's no such thing as a bad question. Remember to be respectful when you do your responses. You can either text us, call us, or inbox us. We'll do our best to answer your questions either on this show or the very next show. With that being said, we start milling in the show with the backpack. And that backpack consists of making sure you have your driver's license and insurance before you get in that vehicle. Remember to place them above the visor. That way, if stopped by law enforcement, they're easily accessible and won't be mistaken for a weapon. Remember to stay calm, keep your hands when you get seen, allow the officer to go through a spiel, and as always make it on home to your loved ones. Same thing when walking down the street. Make sure you got your driver's license or ID where it's easily accessible. Remember to stay calm, keep your hands where they can be seen, allow the officer to go through a spiel, and as always, make it on home to your loved ones.
Indeed. And like I say, I would like to piggyback on that just a little bit when we get to talking about making it home to your loved ones. We've had the law change as far as the age. As I always stated, it's down to 18 now. These kids are kind of going back to school. There's so many different things that's kind of happening in our schools, where we just saw an unfortunate mass shooting at a school today. We'll kind of get into that. But parents, please pay attention to where your kids are at, who they're hanging out with. There's a lot of different things that's kind of going on out here in our communities, and we just want to make sure that we give our kids a fighting chance to make sure that they can be tomorrow's future. Pay attention, to the kids that are out there on the bus stops. Some kids have already kind of went back to school. We're starting to lose a little bit of daylight every day. I think we got about another 2, 3, 4 days or something like that there for the state fair, something like that there. So the weather is slowly but surely starting to change, especially at night, getting a little cool.
Yeah, and the state fair has already experienced this little, points of drama here and there throughout it. So, but it expects to be a good fair. I'll be out there this weekend, guys, checking out some things. So, you'll see me out and about either Friday or Saturday. So I'll be out there just taking in some food, maybe probably handing out some cards and that, answering a few questions here and there, because I know folks got some questions about what's going on with the campaign, and they want to hear about the Steelers and know how great the Steelers are. And so I'll be bringing that information to you. Just so you know, there's still a few moments to sign up and jump on the Steeler wagon. The clock hasn't sounded for the first season, and traditionally we don't take any fans after the first game. So, here's your chance now to get in and try and be a part of the fan club and be a part of a championship team. And if not, there's always next season for you guys to sign up.
Boy, if that wasn't a selling pitch, I don't know what was, right? Make me want to turn over and be a Steelers fan. Yeah, not this year, though. Maybe next year. But with that being said, again, I do want to kind of give another condolences to Brandy Israel and her family for their loss in her family. This is happening just way too much, way too often, not just here, in our backyards, but kind of throughout the country. Mental health, addiction, things of that nature is real. It is extremely real. It's a real thing. And sometimes we don't necessarily have the components, if you will, to truly deal with it. It takes, several times to kind of go back and forth between you and the doctor, to get the right, dosage and right medication and things of that nature. There's individuals that like to kind of, I shouldn't say like to, that's the wrong term. They tend to
medicate?
No, not self-medicate. They tend to kind of put harm on themselves. They
self-harm?
Self-harm type. There's a word I'm looking for, but we'll go with self-harm.
Suicide?
No, not suicide. They just basically just kind of place barriers in front of self-sabotage. They self-sabotage, even though that they have a very good, system to help support them. Me personally, I have a stepdaughter that's currently, residing with me right now. And there has been some continual generational trauma there. And she still has a very good support system, but there's just things that she's not making sound decisions on. And so I'm definitely trying to be there along with other individuals in her life, trying to be there to kind of help her through. But it's really kind of tough, when they have kind of aged out, of getting into various programs. She's at a certain level. You think, feel, or believe that she needs to be at a different level, but you just don't necessarily have that time to basically kind of hold their hand, and making sure that they're doing various different things, especially when there's medications and stuff like that. They're involved, and it's medication being taken.
The thing of it is though, with the mental health piece, man, it's one of those deals where you always have to go back to the beginning, right?
Absolutely.
Because unfortunately, as parents, we don't always diagnose it or catch it in early enough time to really impact it. And so when we have a child that maybe, even if that child goes from 1 to 7 years old without being treated properly, by the time we actually discover it and begin to put together a plan, if everything goes perfect, we're looking at age 14 to 15 before we get them back to 0.
Absolutely.
Where we can begin that change. And so, most likely this young lady has probably received some, diagnosis, but hasn't had, an impacted change until like middle age. And so probably if she got to like maybe 15 or 16 before it was really caught and treated properly, then we're looking at like around age 32, 31-ish before we actually begin to go, okay, we're at a position where we can do something to affect change, right? Because
right.
And that's if everything goes perfect.
Absolutely.
And that's just getting her back to 0, right? So that is the hardest part as a parent, because you have to survive that time frame in between, from the decision-making process to the immature decisions that you are seeing as, irrational. Like, man, why wouldn't you just grasp that? Her body is processing, is like, what are you talking about? This is who I am. This the norms, and why are you bothering me?
Right.
And so that why you bother me part really burns you up as a parent, because it's like, man, I just need you to do A, B, and C. How hard can it be? We've had this conversation. But as you know, people all develop at their own speed.
Right.
And that is the hardest part of healing, is waiting for that person to for one day for that light bulb just to go cling.
Yeah.
My God, what you're saying makes sense now.
Absolutely.
Ta-da!
Yes. And I think, I believe that in speaking with her mother, when she had her second child, my oldest stepdaughter, and then when she had the third child, the second stepdaughter, they're only like 4 years apart.
Yeah.
And the youngest stepdaughter, as you were saying, at a young age, started experiencing some delays and things of that nature. And so the oldest daughter feeling a certain type of way, mom giving the younger daughter more attention, and so therefore the fathers, were not involved, in this, in the children's lives. And that made it extremely, even more challenging for the mother.
Yeah, because what we have here, is basically historical dysfunction that has carried over for generations.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, when you are growing up in dysfunction, you begin to see that as the norm, and everybody else is strange, right?
Right.
And so when you see it in your kids, it's kind of like, well, they like me. They're like me. So, they normal to me, right? And it's not until you get them in a different environment and some teachers going, well, I've been talking to little Billy for, the last 4 weeks. He won't shut up.
Right,
and I can't get him to sit still. And so one of the things that has happened over the years, though, unfortunately, is that teachers and faculty members were put in a position to do diagnosis without having a professional background. And so a lot of those kids, they were using Concerta and Ritalin and all kinds of things on, not necessarily knowing exactly what would work for that kid and cause more damage. And as you know, when it comes to psychotropic medications, there's no certainty, right? It's all got to be tailored to the individual, proper observation and documentation. And so
Indeed.
It can sometimes cause more harm than good.
Indeed. Well, again, it's my point is that whether it's my particular family situation and or abroad, if you will, there's a lot of families out here that's struggling.
Oh yeah.
With mental health and addiction and all these other different things that kind of come into play. So, with that being said, please make sure that you're telling one another how much you care, how much you love them, showing these kids affection, that whole nurture versus nature, theory and things of that nature. Monitor their cell phones, monitor what games they're playing, spend some time with them. And we get that you have to pay the bills and everything is going up, but you check and you got to, work a job and a half, and and sometimes you just may not be, a solid couple, but that doesn't mean that you can't co-parent, but do what you need to do to try and make it work, to have at least a stable foundation and a good support system, not only for that kid, but for yourself as well.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to admit when something's outside of your range,
Indeed.
Right? A lot of parents just they can't admit that, I don't have the ability to handle this situation. I might need some professional assistance to help me fix this. And as a result of that, the child pays the price for that. Now, like I always tell people, the downside of children is that they're computers. And so what you put in them, you get out. And so, that lack of allowing someone to help you, we generally don't know exactly the damage that's caused until they're adults.
Right.
Right. And then we go, dang, what happened? And it's because now they don't have the necessary repercussions to worry about, and the true them shows up, right, based on what they've experienced and what they learned and the people they came in contact with. So it's very important to try and reach out and identify early,
right,
that there needs to be some type of intervention.
Yeah, and I just want to piggyback on it just a little bit, because when you find out that intervention is needed, don't be shy to accept,
Yes.
that help,
Yes.
to go ask for that help, to go get that help. We know, in the African American community, it was kind of taboo, that, we go and see a psychiatrist or we go and see a therapist and all this other type of stuff. Not so much, in the past, decade or so. It's a lot more common, but there's still a lot of individuals that don't want to do that, for one. And one of the main reasons is I had a good buddy of mine who was kind of going through some stuff here recently, and he was telling me, man, it's costing me like $82 per visit. And I don't have that kind of money. Again, when we're talking about everything is going up, but it's check, and so how do we get these individuals the necessary, type of help or support.
And the thing of it is too, I don't think a lot of people realize how overwhelmed the system is right now.
Absolutely.
Because there's so many people that are dealing with dysfunction that now when you're telling your kid, I just need you to be normal, it's like there's like 500 people next to me that have the same issue, so I feel normal.
Right.
And so that's the hardest part, is like, man, just be normal. And it's like, what are you talking about? My friends got the same thing going on. We're all out here kind of like bouncing off the walls. you know what I mean? And
Right.
It is hard, because for so long this behavior has gone unaddressed for whatever reason, that now that dysfunction has become the national norm. And so we have to really find a way to get parents back to a basic understanding of what our opinion of normal is,
Right.
and then try and work those kids back to that agenda.
Right. And really quick, one of the things I've also noticed is that, because I've kind of done it myself with my own current situation, is I tend to try to compare yesteryear to yesterday. And we grew up in a whole totally different era.
Yes,
what I'm saying? So
yes.
we cannot expect that to be now, because there's just been so many different things that has occurred between all of that. So sometimes it's hard to try to grasp, or understand.
When we were kids, we hold the old head saying that generational gap, right? And it didn't get smaller, guys. It actually got wider.
Right.
So, I mean, thanks to the narcotics and the dysfunction and the mental health needs that have went unaddressed, the gap has gotten further away. Society has dealt with it a lot less now, is looked upon as not necessarily an important issue that needs to be dealt with. But unfortunately, what we do find statistically is that a good chunk of the people that we find that are involved in negative activity, violent offenses, criminal activity, are folks that are dealing with unaddressed mental health issues. And so we should be looking for ways to get them proper assistance and treatment instead of incarcerating them. And that hasn't happened. But we're finally at least starting to admit that there's something else going on other than just the crime.
Absolutely. Well, I do want to say that if you are finding yourself, in these type of situations, one of the resources that we have, is Brandy Israel, and her healing circles, for families. She was going to share a lot more as far as when her next session was going to be, and then talk more about her programming. You can find her, as far as I know, on Facebook. However, if you do decide to reach out, please give her a little bit of time, as she's dealing with her own, family trauma and crisis right now as well. But with that being said, brother, we have had quite the trauma, within the city of Minneapolis over the last 48 hours or so. And it seemed like just as soon as we get to a point where we think we're, attempting to heal just a little bit, and we're having some type of plan, and it's starting to look pretty good for us, something else happens. Now, my phone has just been blowing up, since this whole situation has started. And everyone has their own views and comments and opinions on, why they feel or believe that this is happening and things of that nature. But we always kind of continue to, encourage people to sit back and relax and wait for all the facts to come out before we start putting out any type of propaganda.
Right.
Nevertheless, we've had a couple of mass shootings. The first one left one dead and I think 6 or 7 other injured.
Right.
We've had 2 situations where 2 individuals were shot, and I think another one died in that situation. I think it was a similar situation. These are in different parts of the city. And then our most current, which is the most impactful, if you will, based on the location of it being at a school, so on and so forth, where there was at least two, an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old child that was killed, but I understand there was at least 18, up to 18 more individuals that was injured.
Yeah, 17, and so it's 3 deceased.
3 deceased. Okay.
That's including the shooter himself.
Okay.
All right, and then there's 17 that were injured. 11 that went to Hennepin County. The rest went to Children's. And 11 of those folks that went to Hennepin County were children.
Okay.
So, and those folks it sounds like they're expected to recover physically from their wounds, but the trauma going forward, both to the school and the community, just began today. So, yeah, it's very tragic that this happened again. And I just think we really need to work harder on ways to prevent these measures. And in this particular case, this gentleman fired shots from outside the church through the window into the where they were having mass.
Okay.
And so it's just tragic. He barricaded the door so nobody could get out. And then he started shooting through the side window into the parish where they were actually having services. So it's hard to plan for these things, but you know, I thought it was a pretty decent response by the 911 operators and the folks who were actually showing up, the emergency response teams that came together, and you know, thankfully, you know, it didn't go any further.
Yes, it could have been a lot worse.
Mm-hmm.
But when we're talking about planning, you know, for such tragedies, first of all, we hate to see this happen in the first place.
Yes.
But this is extreme. This is the reason why, or one of the factors why, that when you build something such as a school, such as a church, you know, or whatever assets and things of that nature that you're building, you have to ensure that you're putting in some form of safety and security piece. You know, I've seen it and heard it again and again that they believe because they have the proper lighting, so to speak, and they have the proper cameras, so to speak, and that they're maybe in a geographical area that certain things are not going to happen, or it happens in other places, but it's not happening here.
Yeah, and you know, I don't think they realize that the more we put out that we're shorthanded in terms of law enforcement and professionals that we utilize to prevent these situations from happening, the more bolder people are becoming, because the less likely chance of being caught is less and less. And so, you know, but when you couple that with mental health issues, people feel the need that they can get away with it, and they try it. You know, I've always said it. I know that you know, the first thing we always hear is budget.
Yes,
budget.
Absolutely.
But in my mind, there's no price that we can put on saving life, preventing life from being lost. And so, you know, it sounds strange to add more deputies, but the reality of it is we're not looking to go out and harass people on the street. We're looking to prevent visibility,
right,
to make people think about doing some things like this because of the fear of being caught before they could actually get away. And so that's always the hope, is that we would layer with the local PD to have both the police and the sheriff cars 10 to 5 minutes intervals between each other, because we got such a robust patrol out that hopefully it would prevent this. Now, you can't stop everything, but the goal is to make people feel a lot safer. And so, you know, that is the hope out there.
And what I would add to that is that you know, even if we had those more patrols from city cops and the county sheriffs and things of that nature, like you said, we can't, you know, prevent everything. But this is why I think that we should have some of these more highly trained security entities, you know, come into play and be able to get, you know, some necessary training from some law enforcement officers. And I know that, like down in the state of Illinois, they have things such as special police, things of that nature that, we might want to look at up here to make sure that maybe you can't afford the police at 150 an hour or whatever the case may be, but you can afford a highly trained, armed security professional, at 65 or 70 an hour.
Well, the key is you're right on track. I think what they have to understand is that safety is always in layers.
Absolutely.
Right? You always have to have layers. So there's that safety from the staff at the school being properly trained. There's the safety from the cameras and the equipment that they're scanning people to make sure that you can't just walk up to the schools and that school areas are gated off properly or at least barriered properly. And then of course after that, then you have the security itself, physical security, and then then law enforcement. You know what I mean? So you want to have it so that it's layered. And when it's layered on a regular basis, then you're not trying to get up to speed.
Right. Absolutely.
So part of that security plan is definitely making sure that you're including law enforcement, security staff, and in the community as well.
Absolutely.
With protocols and things in case something happened. Here's how we're going to react.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to have those plans. Now, the problem that I've seen over time period is that so many agencies are in denial for optic purposes. They don't want to have the metal detectors in the school because it looks bad. We don't want to train them for jail. But I don't want them to think about jail, but I do want them to be safe in school. I want to have that barrier so that when you do come to the school, you're forced to come. It funnels you to like an office where we can actually see what's happening, right? And we have a plan to handle incidents in that area. Again, working with the community, you got a community patrol that's already patrolling that area on a regular basis is going to see some of those things, hopefully. And then you got physical security that's patrolling interior to exterior to make sure those things aren't happening. So it's definitely some things that we as society need to start looking at and admitting, like, yes, in any place where we're going to have vulnerable adults or children, we need to layer the place with security to make sure that we're doing the best to keep them safe.
Indeed. And in addition to that, we also need to make sure that we have those interworking relationships as we plan to have once we are elected for Hennepin County Sheriff, to where we're going to be having those personal relationships with those other law enforcement agencies that's within Hennepin County, so then therefore we can have that collaborative effort. Because like you said before, when we're short like this here and you have a mass incident like this, you're leaving the rest of the city vulnerable.
Yeah, you gotta, Beeks, that means that you have to sit down with your county commissioners who control your budget and have a come to Jesus talk. I know that we're going to hear, hey, this is going to cost us. Why do we need to do this? We've done this, we've done that. Listen, I can't tell you how important it is to invest in people's safety.
Indeed.
That has to be at the forefront, is that if there was a secondary incident during that current time, would we been in a position to be able to handle that? Now, I don't want to go politics, but I do want to remind folks that Hennepin County is the largest county in the state of Minnesota. As a result of that, we have more hard targets to be responsible for. And so there's more greater chance of an incident occurring, and we need to have the manpower to do so. Now, it's been great that we've been able to call upon our mutual aid agreements and have our other partners show up. But what happens once they're there and something else happens? We've exhausted those guys. Where is that next pool coming from then? Right? Outstate? I mean, you know what I mean? So we need to be able to still maintain sensibility and order while dealing with a traumatic situation. And, unfortunately, I don't feel that we're in a position to do that based on what we have in manpower today.
Indeed. And we hope, that those numbers across the board will increase. Mm-hmm. And again, that's another, thing that we plan on addressing is, why, do we continue to have such a shortage? Is it that important for these officers? I'm sorry, for these candidates, to have a 2-year degree, before they are able to apply for a job, because I'll be the first to tell you that I got my degree, but a lot of the stuff that I learned in the classroom and that I went to skills and stuff, did not necessarily equate to when I got on the job. It's just, there's certain things I remembered or whatever, but it was just like, man.
Well, here's the thing that people don't realize. Yes, you have to learn to understand the laws, okay? But 90% of being a police officer is being a person, right?
Absolutely.
You need to be able to empathize, understand, and have a conversation with people as people, right? And then you've got that 30% where you've got to, understand the law and know what laws are being violated and things of that. But, a good chunk of the job is educating the community on what those laws are and educate them so they don't have to go to jail, right? So we want to find ways to assist the community in solving issues that don't necessarily result in jail. We want to be pushing the concept that arrest is our last result if we can help it, right? We want to educate you so you can get those licenses back, so you can be in compliance, because the core goal is to gain compliance, right? And keep everybody safe in the process of doing so. So that's what we want to impact on. Unfortunately, historically, we have always looked at the numbers, get the convictions, get the bad guys. Well, sometimes the bad guy isn't the guy that you're chasing. Sometimes the bad guy is who put him in that position to have to be being chased. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I do want to kind of, roll back just a little bit, because I don't want to get too far off base here, because I want individuals to acknowledge and understand that, we the people, are having a lot of trauma. We're dealing with a lot of trauma on a daily basis, right? And how do we, how do we get through that? How do we support one another? How do we, heal? What does that look like? Because there's so many different factors that are impacting, the overall outcome, that it can be extremely overwhelming.
Yes, I think the brother last week said it best when he said, we really have to work at that tolerance, right? We have to work at that tolerance because, unfortunately, we've gotten to the point where we're back to using violence for disagreements and, and misunderstandings, when there has to be a way to agree to disagree, or a way to resolve our differences that doesn't necessarily require that we use violence. If someone's, being mean to you or not treating you properly, being able to express yourself or find someone to help you express that, that desire to not be abused or misused, without grabbing a firearm and utilizing it. And so, that's what I see. We're not going to get rid of firearms. They've been around forever.
Right.
Even if we came out with stronger laws to ban firearms in general, you're only going to get away, remove them from the law-abiding citizens' hands, right? They're still going to be in the streets. So that's not the answer either. So we have to find a way to educate people to understand that violence does not have to be your way to resolve your issues, right?
Right.
And so we've kind of reverted. I mean, there was a time in our history when everybody was running around carrying guns, and as you know, historically, it didn't solve anything.
Right.
We kind of said, listen, we're not going to run around gunslingers. We're going to resolve our differences either through conversation, communication, or civil courts, things of that nature. But we have kind of slipped back in time now, where you have to almost assume that everybody has a weapon of some kind. And unfortunately, if someone threatens harm to you or others, you have to take it serious, right? And we've gotten to the point now where no one really cares anymore about the environment that they're discharging these weapons into, whether there's children around, whether it's large groups, no matter what's happening at that time.
they're discharging this weapon in the direction of people, and unfortunately now they're using such mass firepower that the damage is overwhelming.
Absolutely. Well, I do want to extend the offer as we have in the past, but any law enforcement personnel that chief or someone from your office to kind of come on down and talk about the various plans that you have in place in your city, what mutual aid that you might have kind of going on for tragic situations that may occur, individuals that may be in the mental health or public health field. Please contact us, come on down. We would love to have you guys on, so then therefore we can better educate, empower, and enhance our members of our community, because these situations are real.
Yeah, let me piggyback off too and say, I also don't want it to get lost in translation. Today, some of those first responders experience one of the worst days in their life, in their career. Mm-hmm. We heard about it. We saw things on the news. They had a front row seat of what was happening. They didn't get a chance to black it out or blink it out. They had to actually see the trauma that occurred to help those who needed that help. And as a result of that, they themselves have been traumatized.
Absolutely.
And in police culture, we do teach, don't go home and discuss this with family. So we need to make sure that the therapists in the community are reaching out to the police departments to make sure that they assist them with being able to process this mental trauma that they experienced today, because it was definitely maximized, especially when there's children involved. The trauma is that much greater to see the damage that happened and be right there when it's happening.
Indeed. And again, I'm just going to throw it out there. Brandy Israel and her healing circles, I know that she's just kind of getting started. I do know that as we're moving forward, I will be part of her program to kind of help, talk to, facilitate, guide, the men, that are within the program. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to that. I do want to send a shout out, if you will, and, let my family, and also my extended family, know that I love them. I know that there's just a lot kind of going on in our society as a whole, mm-hmm. But, just don't forget to check on your family, mm-hmm. check on your friends, say hi to your neighbors, get to know your neighbors. Mm-hmm. You see something, say something, but be a part of the solution, mm-hmm. and not the problem. We have so much going on, and I think that we don't recognize that this is an epidemic. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We're just saying, oh, that's Joe's problem. And he's over there on the north side, but I'm over on the south side. So, it's just crazy for us to kind of have that mentality, because it's only rock paper scissors, almost as if it's going to be on my doorstep. We had Brother KG for years, mm-hmm. Was warning people about this and about that, and before you know it, his family experienced such a tragedy. Mm-hmm. Until this day, he is still, trying to get answers and resolution, and justice, for his family after all that he has done for this city.
Yeah, my hat and condolences go to the folks in the community, because I know that this trauma is hard. Those schools that were in the surrounding areas, the parents are terrified about sending their kids to school tomorrow. The community, the shockwave that goes through the community hearing that there's a shooter, the family member of the shooter who lost a loved one, in this tragedy, who definitely suffered from some definite mental health issues. As the story unfolds, you just find that there's just a lot of people out here hurting, and we just send our condolences out there. And I tell people, all the time, I know there are going to be a lot of flowers, a lot of conversations,
But we really need some answers to figure out how to prevent this from happening, not just in Minneapolis, but nationwide. We need a way to keep our kids safe because it just keep happening time and time again. And we always say, we're going to do better next time, and it just hasn't happened. And unfortunately, these kids are falling victim to our shortcomings. And so we have to do better. We just have to come out with a plan to fix this, whatever that looks like. Whatever that looks like, we have to come out with a plan. And I don't know what that looks like.
Indeed. Well, brother, I just want to say, I love you dearly. Mm-hmm. And, your family, hope everybody, your family, my family, everybody else that's out there, our listening audience, viewing audience, the family here at CCX Create, we wish everyone well. We want to, again, thank CCX Create for allowing us to kind of be here each and every week to bring you news that you can use to talk about just concerns and issues and factors that we face on a daily basis, right? Again, we cannot do this without them. We cannot do this without you. It's all about supporting one another, and they cannot do this for free, right? So we're asking for individuals to kind of dig in their pockets just a little bit, whether that's $1, $2, whatever that may be. Go on to the CCX Create website, donate a couple bucks or whatever that may look like. We understand that, the wallets is tight, kids going back to school, things of that nature. But if you can find it to donate that $1 or $2, every little bit will help. Mm-hmm. With that being said, brother, I know that we're down to the end of another fabulous and spirited show. I definitely want to make sure that we continue to kind of track this and follow up, on this here. I know that there's going to be a lot to come in days and weeks to come about this here. I know that there's going to be other schools that's going to be looking at how they proceed forward, with their safety plan for this year. Fortunately, at least in this particular situation, the gentleman who created all this chaos will no longer be able to do that because he is now deceased. But again, his family and things of that nature also has been impacted as well. But again, man, I'm going to go ahead and, turn it on over to you, brother. So then therefore we can go ahead and get on out of here.
Yeah, I just one more time want to send a shout out to the community who stepped back during this tragedy and allowed the emergency responders to do their job.
Indeed.
They let them do their job, and they were able to save the maximum amount of people they could save. And I just want to thank the emergency responders for doing such a good job of getting there in a timely fashion, rushing in the danger, putting themselves in harm's way to make sure that everybody that they could save got saved. And of course, to the trauma docs and all the hospitals that received those victims and did their best to save lives. I just hats off to those guys for doing a really great job, and we appreciate what you do every day, guys. So
absolutely,
just want to let you know that. With that being said, I want to thank everybody for joining us. We are going to wrap it up with this last backpack and let you guys get out of here. That's right. That backpack consists of making sure you got your driver's license and insurance before you get in that vehicle. Remember to place them above the visor. That way, if stopped by law enforcement, you won't be mistaken for a weapon. Remember to stay calm. Allow the officer to go through a spill. Keep your hands where they can be seen, and as always, make it on home to your loved ones. Same thing when walking down the street. Make sure you got your driver's license or ID where it's easily accessible. Remember to stay calm. Keep your hands where they can be seen. Allow the officer to go through his spiel, and as always, make it on home to your loved ones. Alrighty, guys. Remember to watch those Steelers come into a TV near you. Championship team. Don't lose out. Watch out. Right? There you go. With that being said, my name's Joe Banks.
And I'm Anthijuan Beeks.
And we just talked about it.
Go Vikes.
Peace, Steelers.